The Roman civilization lasted longer than nearly any other civilization, at a span of over 2 millennia. With roughly 2,200 years of history, it's no shock that everyone has heard of the Roman Empire, and that the effects of that civilization are still seen prominently today. But how exactly did a society strong enough to last for 2 millennia come to be? Ever since I first learned of the ancient powerhouse of Italy, I've been fascinated by all the history of its beginnings and what made it so strong, constantly researching and discovering new information. What I have found has always shown a brighter light on the empire and its collapse. I'm going to cover the key points that led to the incredible empire by discussing the formation of Rome from kingdom to republic and to the beginning of its incredible expansion. To start, let me explain where Rome came from. Rome's legend begins with a set of twins named Romulus and Remus, who were raised by a she-wolf. In 753 BC, these two brothers are said to have found a city on 7 hills named Rome. In the early days, Rome was a city-state, led by a single powerful king elected by the assembly, and Romulus was the first to rule. Over the next 200 years, the kings would serve as the highest authority and expand Rome's power and influence. However, eventually, the original cultural leaders, the Romans and Sabines, were replaced by the Etruscans. They were foreigners. Under the Etruscan kings, Rome flourished even more. Temples were built, walls were erected to protect the 7 hills, and neighboring enemies were beaten into submission. As William Morey, PhD, says in his works Outlines of Roman History, we cannot, of course, accept these stories as real history. We can yet see in them the evidence that Rome was becoming different from what it had been under the earlier kings, and that it acquired a dominant power over the neighboring land of Latium. The last of the Etruscan kings was a cruel, proud man who ruled without the support of the people or the Senate. And so, in 509 BC, despite their successes, Tarquinius Superbus was cast out by the people of Rome and replaced with a republic style of government. During the reign of the Roman kings, 2 distinct classes were formed, the patricians and the plebeians. The patricians were, simply put, the old families from the founding of Rome. They were the only ones allowed to vote in the assembly, serve in the armies at higher ranks, or achieve any sort of political power. The plebeians encompassed everyone else. Nigel Rogers and Hazel Dodge tell us in their book entitled Roman Empire. As the republic grew in both power and territory, the civil issues at home concerning the plebeians' plight would eventually lead to threats of succession from the state. Rogers and Dodge thus tell us that reforms were allowed for the plebeians to have representation within the politics, and with it, power. For the first time in the life of the Republic, the concerns in favor of the people of Rome would make and break many leaders. According to David Schotter's work, Follow the Roman Republic, some of the most famous and effective leaders would come to great power due to plebeians and their newfound standing, like Tiberius Gracchus and Julius Caesar. After years of being led by the richest and smallest portion of Roman society, the plebeians would finally begin to influence the direction of the Republic, and in a major way. As the History Channel describes, in addition to the 2 classes of Rome, the leadership of the country was placed in the hands of 2 elected consuls, one specifically for military campaigns and the other for domestic issues. These 2 elected officials were to serve with virtue and courage like a true Roman. This model of leadership is what led to both Rome's success as a fledgling republic, as well as its eventual transition into an empire. With the populace satisfied and the republic the strongest force in Italy, Rome looked to further her power and influence in the peninsula. To the north of Rome lay the Etruscan city of Veii, and it was there that Rome set her sights for conquest. Following 4 decades of on and off struggle, Veii was eventually captured and Rome's domain doubled. The next century of conflicts would establish Rome as a true power she would later become both militarily and politically. Later wars with the Samnites and eventually the Latin League would have established Rome as the undisputed sole ruler of Latium. The true strength of Rome was not only displayed in their militaristic victories, but also in their political genius, and the use of civitas sine suffragio, citizenship without the voting rights. This policy of quasi-citizenship would play a large part in the effective control and management of a large and ever-expanding Roman Empire. As a result of the Great Latin War, all parties were either directly subjugated by Rome or made into autonomous vassals via treaties. Thus Rome was left only to face the Greek cities in the south before controlling all of the peninsula. Soon enough, a Greco-Roman clash would occur. In the year 280 BC, Rome declared war on Taranto, a Greek city in southern Italy. The importance of this conflict for Rome comes directly from how the Tarentines fought the war. Epirus was a great kingdom led by the mercenary king Pyrrhus. He had one of the fiercest armies coin could buy at the time, and Taranto paid for his services in the war. Rome was never supposed to win this war with Epirus' backing, which began with two significant defeats for Rome. The key to Pyrrhus' victory was attributed to the composition of his army, which utilized Greek spearmen, a historically potent force, and war elephants. But Rome was not out. Nigel and Dodge are quoted to say Rome adapted its infantry and tactics to cope with the elephant and crack Greek spearmen. The Italian peninsula was under Rome's control by the end of 272 BC. In these early 100 years, Rome showed her true power through military strategy and political tact. Over the next 3 centuries, Rome would continue to expand and become the largest power in the ancient world. The magnificence of Rome is still seen in many aspects of life today. Everything that made Rome the historical staple it is today started with a small kingdom of Rome, like many other city-states at the time. Rome adopted the political model of a republic and enacted social reforms to keep it strong as it evolved. The world began to experience Rome's true power and conquest of the Italian peninsula, which set the stage for the empire to be born. As Nigel Rogers states, Rome remains the archetypal empire, the object of admiration, even 2,000 years later.